Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebsta.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks.
What's the addressable market? Who's going to buy? Where can we sell and who's going to buy? And the reality is everyone has a phone. So you have to think about what drives a customer to want to buy SMS? Is it something specific to that business? Is it their customer base being more likely to respond to SMS?
This is Sales Ops Demystified, the number one most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales ops onto the show to deconstruct the what, why, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebsta, a revenue intelligence platform used to identify risk in the pipeline and score customer engagement, and is sponsored by the Global Sales Operations Association and the UK Revenue Operations Network. Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. Today, we're joined by Zahra Bukhari, who's currently a senior sales operations manager at Klaviyo. Now, I love Klaviyo. Before we jump in, I used to use Klaviyo for an e-commerce store we had. And they automated the email automations. And this was 4 years ago.
Yeah, we've grown like crazy. We actually have SMS now too.
Really? Incredible.
Yeah, we just released it. Yeah.
I don't want to derail this whole interview with e-commerce chat because we're really here to talk about the world of sales operations. Now, Zahra, I believe you have somewhat around 12 to 13 years in the sales and sales analysis operations game. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Incredible. So typically the first question is, how did you make your way from profession A into sales ops? But it seems like you, from the early days of your career, you entered into the world of sales. Could you just clarify if that is the case?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I have had most of my experience in sales and analytics. But the reality is that I started my career in finance, in asset management. So I don't even really count that a lot of times when I'm thinking about my ops career, although operational in some ways. So I actually, I started my career in asset management at a local asset manager. And I think I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was, doing admin work for a portfolio manager. So admin work with a portfolio manager would be like processing, transactions on the secondary market, helping balance their books. And it was really just one of those learning the way of the world. And we sat next to an HR team, and I'm kind of an extroverted person. And someone in the HR team was like, "You would be great in sales." And that just shows how little this woman knows about sales, because it's not about being an extrovert. It's about having a thick skin. It's about, being a great listener. It's about being, I hope it doesn't say that I'm none of those things, but it's so much more than just being extroverted. But because I was young and she seemed, really excited, and she's like, the money's great, I was like, okay, let's do it. So I interviewed for a team that sold exchange traded funds at our asset manager. And we work with traders at hedge funds and other asset managers. And, I think as soon as I joined, I realized that sales was not for me, especially in finance, because, one, there's a culture, right? I'm a young South Asian woman in dealing with a sea of not young South Asian women who couldn't pronounce my name, who'd, who didn't have the same personality. They all kind of fit one package, and I wasn't one of those. So I instantly felt kind of uncomfortable. I wasn't super passionate about exchange traded funds. So I was working with these group of really great, smart guys, and I realized very quickly the one thing they were missing was someone who knew how to like open Excel and log into Salesforce. That was, I think, the two things that I was like, these guys don't know how to do this. I can really drive value here. And they were just implementing Salesforce at the time at the company. So I really started on just doing like competitive analysis and helping set up dashboards in the Salesforce instance because it was new. I also did like a SharePoint page for the team. I then moved on to building content. So really, really great content that got to go to like, different other asset managers, sorry. And yeah, it was great. And I think I was able to learn a lot on my own, but I very quickly realized in 4 years that I needed a teacher. I needed someone who could guide me. I needed somewhere where it would move a little bit faster, where, there was more innovation. And I was having lunch with a friend and she was working across the street and she was like, well, I'm at a startup and we're doing that here. Like you should come over. We have an ops team, they're hiring. So I joined, and that's really, I think in 2014 where my sales ops career really took off, I think I'd want to say.
Got it. So it was like an organic start where you were in a sales function and you realized actually selling was not great. So you shifted your time over and then you really got into the world of sales ops when you moved. And away from it was State Farm, that was the financial services company, and then Localytics, that was the startup. So
the company was State Street Global Advisors. So they're a bank, but they have an asset management arm. That's pretty big in Boston. And yeah, it went from moving, the finance world to the SaaS world, to Localytics. Yeah.
Got it. Do you know Mark Feldman, by the way? He's also a guest on the show who used to be a sales ops lead, I think, at Localytics. He may have moved on now.
I think he might have post-dated me.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, so him and I never worked together. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Post-dated might not be the word, but yeah, he was after me, I think. But I heard he's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was an awesome interview. Shout out to Mark. Now, so we joined Localytics. Were you the only sales ops resource, or did you join part of a team?
That's a great question. I was a part of a team.
Got it. And so you actually were able to I guess, learn more about what a sales function looks like.
Exactly. Yeah. It was our director. It was sort of a lead analyst. There was a Salesforce admin, and then there was myself. I was an analyst who sort of partnered with sales management. The sales ops team there really handled pre and post sale. But my function, is where really any humble beginning starts, right? Really like deal desk, spiffs with management, understanding basic reporting, dashboards, enablement. But about a year in, there was a pretty massive layoff at Localytics, and our director had left in that process. And then someone elected to leave about a month later, and she was our admin. So it really gave me the opportunity to get certified and learn the ins and outs of Salesforce, which was great.
Yeah, I did see that on LinkedIn, certified Salesforce admin. Zooming into today in Klaviyo's function, if we can, could you just roughly share a rough number of reps that your team is supporting, and then also a rough number of people in the sales ops team?
Sure. So in terms of reps, right now we're at 100, give or take. I always like to shout out to that Klaviyo has has grown in headcount double year over year. Sorry, I didn't say that right, but we've doubled in headcount year over year, which is pretty amazing. And where we're at, about 100, give or take right now, we estimate ending the year upwards to 150, which is amazing.
Awesome. And then how many people in the sales ops function?
Yeah, so the sales ops function, we have currently today 11 people, but we're actually about to welcome 3 more. So we're probably going to end the year closer to 20, which is great.
And could you break down the functions or the roles in the department between those 20?
Sure, yeah. So we have 2 sort of main functions. we have a data function, and then we have a systems function. So everyone in the data function reports directly to me. And then everyone in the systems function reports to a business systems manager who reports to me. In the data function, we have sort of two roles. One is a specialist role, so you can be a senior specialist or a specialist, and those people's responsibility is to align directly with a business leader, and they're supposed to help them with, forecasting, planning, process improvement, and then sort of everything in between, right? Whether it's presentations for their individual teams, one-off analysis. The other role we have is an order admin role. So the order admin role is going to be sort of like a traditional deal desk role, but because Klaviyo, is high volume, so we're very transactional in our sale. We have thousands of deals that need to be reviewed, and we're a credit card business, so they come in pretty automated, right? There's not like a contract you can review and double check. So those roles, they're in the weeds of ensuring that our data is accurate. They're also supporting our reps, like on the front end. So they're the ones who, when we have a question in a shared Slack channel of hey, why wasn't this lead converted? They're the ones responding and answering those questions. In the systems function, we have a developer today, a systems analyst, and a business systems analyst. The developer, I think their responsibility is clear. The systems analyst is doing a lot of our day-to-day systems management, whether it's helping reps, vendor management, troubleshooting issues, basic Salesforce configuration. And then we have a BSA who's pretty new to our team. She's great. She's going to be responsible. I've really stretched my team to sort of wear both the tech and the business hats. And I think we're now growing into a position now where people don't have to do that, right? They can really spend their time focusing on the technical aspect. They don't need to be, a business expert. And our BSA will help those people really focus on their roles. And then our manager, who's phenomenal, she really is still today wearing like the strategic project hats. So we're very much individual contributors in our role as well. I fully own our sales plan. I, still today do a lot in the terms of reporting and answering questions. We're starting to grow away from that, right? So she's going to now hire more analysts, more senior systems analysts to start taking on those strategic projects. So yeah, that's the team today.
Got it. And then who do you report into?
Great question. Today, I report to our VP of sales. I actually worked with him at Localytics, and we have a great working relationship. So it's been great.
Amazing. So did you join Klaviyo or did he or she join Klaviyo first and then you migrated together, I guess?
He joined. It's kind of a great story. You might not end up using this, but I will share with you guys just so you know. When he was thinking about leaving Localytics, I actually didn't work for him. We worked together, but it was very much just like, we just had like a basic employee relationship. He was a great guy. I liked working with him. But I think close to my end of my time at Localytics, I was pretty unhappy. I wanted to change. I was ready for something different, to grow something. And I started sort of taking him as a mentor. Didn't know he was planning on leaving. And then when it came time and he was getting ready to leave, he was like, listen, this company has it all. Like, they're doubling in all ways possible. And being like the forever, like, pessimistic ops person, I was like, yeah, sure. Every startup says that. But I really loved working with him. So I went and yeah, he's been right. It's been great. It's like a rocket ship. So it's been awesome.
And I think that story is highly relevant because we've had this a number of times before where sales ops managers or leaders or directors have kind of moved to a business and then almost pulled people with them because you have the trust, you work effectively together. And so that makes total
100%.
sense. What is the biggest focus of the sales ops function for Klaviyo in 2021?
That's a great question. It's hard to pick just one. For me specifically, if I had to say I could pick one thing out of everything, out of all of our, Klaviyo's big business goals, I really think this is the year where our sales ops team really scales to support the business that we are today. I don't know how much you know about Klaviyo and our background, but we're a fully bootstrapped company.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Like crazy. Yeah, we've grown like crazy. And the reality for anyone who's been in a bootstrap company is like, before you get to that like adult stage, right? You're doing everything you can to be scrappy and to be lean. And I'm so thankful for the team I get to work with, because like I've really been able to ask a lot of them. And everyone has ended up wearing a million hats. And where that is so beneficial to the company, right? Where like you get to save on money, you get people who are these like amazing subject matter experts because they've seen it all. They've seen every aspect of it. You end up losing too, right? This year, I've really come into a world where like, I see where managers don't feel supported. I see where they kind of feel like, oh, well, you must be too busy to help me with this, right? So this is the year where I am very hopeful that we will now start hiring to get, a single point of contact for every leader, right? So they don't have to feel like a project is too small or a question they want to answer is not relevant. And then I think on the more business side, we just released SMS. We re-released SMS, I should say, into a subscription model. And we're growing that part of our business, right? We're thinking of all the new markets we can go into. That's the most obvious right now. And I think figuring out ways to scale our systems and our processes to support those new endeavors, I think is really huge for us right now. And it's challenging, so it's the focus, I think.
Yeah, and so just for the benefit of the audience, Klaviyo is essentially e-commerce email automation software, and the core product is the email. But then you've also, I assume, released the automation product for texting as well.
So we are a marketing automation platform, and our core product historically has been email. We actually last year, or maybe even the year before, with COVID, everything is like a blur, but the year before released a customer analytics product that came with the product. You didn't need to sell it. You didn't need to buy it separately. And that allows you to see the insights into your customers and sort of an analytics level. And now more recently, we released SMS. Yeah.
Awesome. And so do you have like a separate sales team or sales plan for SMS? How's that going to impact the work of the sales ops team?
That's such a good question. So we did have a separate plan coming into the year. But what I will say is like SMS is a really, really difficult, product to plan for, because there's not a ton of data, right? When you think about, if you've never sold it before, you don't have any of your own historical data, which we have heavily relied on when we think about planning the year. But then when you think about like out in the market, and we have a phenomenal BI team that produces a bunch of data for us, but really, what questions do you ask when you plan? You think to yourself, well, what's the addressable market, right? Who's going to buy, right? Where can we sell and who's going to buy? And the reality is everyone has a phone. So you have to think about like, what drives a customer to want to buy SMS? Is it something specific to that business? Is it their customer base being more likely to, respond to SMS? Is it based on like the segment they're in, right? If they're higher or lower in the segment. So it's all things to think about. And I think we've made some high level assumptions. And now that we've released the subscription, I think we're going to have a few critical months where we get to now look at the data and see, who this is working for and how it's working and how we can benefit our customers more and help them make more money.
It sounds like a quintessential sales ops problem, which I'm sure you're very excited about cracking it. And as you get more information, it will become more clear, I guess.
Exactly.
Final question from me, Zahra, who in the world of sales ops would you most like to take for lunch?
Oh my God, that is such a great question. Oof. I don't know how pie in the sky this has to be, because there's actually people locally, like in Boston, that I even know personally, and I don't get to talk to that much. I mean,
anybody.
I think anybody. Oh, geez. Okay, so the first choice would be Mark Benioff, not because he has any specific sales ops insights to give me, but just because I feel like that would make great conversation with any sales ops person. Say I know him.
Yeah, true.
On a local level, this is really, really tough. So there's a gentleman at HubSpot. I want to say he's the VP of operations, Channing Thayer. And I've gotten the chance to talk to him a couple of times, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. Like, he has so many great insights into how to scale a transactional or a high velocity rather sales team. And the time I have gotten with him has just been very insightful, and he's given me a lot of great insight. So I would love to, I know his time is precious. So I would love to, this feels a little creepy because God forbid he hears this podcast. He's going to be like, Lord, never taking a call with this girl again. But yes, I would 100% love to pick his brain more any chance I get.
Amazing. Well, Zahra, now I'm going to bring in my wonderful co-host, Alex, who's been furiously typing away with notes to come on and ask some more specific questions. Alex, welcome to the call.
Thank you for letting me out of my dark room in a cave. No, thank you so much, Zahra. It's been really interesting listening in. And you described Klaviyo's growth, like a rocket ship, and you said 2x every year. And if my maths is correct, you've been there 3 years, which means that's approximately 8x since you've been there. I'm guessing your career growth has been fairly like a rocket ship there as well, then, because you're leading a team of soon to be, or end of the year being 20. And I just thought that might be a really interesting thing to sort of dive down in, because obviously audience will span a spectrum of places, but would love to be really interesting to know, how do you go about sort of building a team, kind of, as you said, sort of really organizing and splitting the functions. So you gave us a really detailed breakdown, which is great how you've done it, but just some sort of guidance on how you've approached that as you've sort of grown.
Yeah, that's a great question. I should start by saying, when you guys reached out to me, I was really excited, and listening to some of the podcasts, I was like, wow, a lot of these people have so much experience. And I never once tried to claim that I have like the silver bullet or all the experience to answer all the questions. But you're right. Klaviyo has given me a lot of opportunity to gain confidence in answering, in building and answering really difficult questions. So when I joined Klaviyo, I was taking over from someone who's actually a manager in our BI team now. He's super smart, but his goals were never operations. He was just sort of, helping grow the function to the best of his ability with the experience he had. He did a great job, but he had a co-op. So I came in and I inherited one co-op or intern, and it was her and I was kind of still in that very much that prior experience brain where I was like, I can just be a jack of all trades. I can sort of do as much as I can on my own, and that should be enough. And so I was like managing our Salesforce instance. I was putting up, helping put up a partner program. I was helping, begin driving more outbound revenue. I was, helping doing a million things. And I realized very quickly, I have to answer that question. How do you build a team to support a business like this? And it's funny because, when Tom asked me the question, that's still my answer, right? I just need to get this team right. So I think in growing it sort of happened organically, right? So I think I mentioned the partner program. We had a phenomenal partner program at the time, but it had so much room for improvement in ways we could leverage our partners, even more. And we wanted to make some major improvements, which included standing up a partner portal, improving the program so it incentivized our partners too, who work so hard. And so I quickly was like, okay, I'm doing all this work. I need to bring in a channel operations specialist. That was my first sort of specialist that I was like, I need someone who can go out and partner with channel leadership on my behalf that I can trust that, will do a good job. And then I think soon after that, I was like, okay, our systems are a little overbuilt, right? We're this high velocity business. We're getting, thousands of, leads and we need to make sure that we're building a system that can scale. So I found who's now our business systems manager, this phenomenal woman, Catherine, who, she ended up running systems for a year independently. And she did some amazing things. She completely rebuilt our lead routing system. She moved the entire company from Classic to Lightning. She moved our product to Salesforce Sync. to Heroku, which made it a more efficient sync, with the help of some other great engineers on our team. So that was sort of the next critical hire. We then promoted our co-op to actually a full-time role, which was phenomenal. And that's sort of where it just sort of like was like we opened the gates. We were like, okay, where can we fill spots? Who can we add? And it kind of was like a little haphazard. Still being lean, it was like, what are the holes and how can we fill them, right? Who can we get to fill them? And so that was really last year, was like, who do we need to like what butts and seats do we need to make sure things don't break? And that was getting some of the roles I had discussed. And now this year it's really focusing on like, okay, great. There's not a lot of water spitting out of those holes that I described, but like now how do we build it so we have everyone sort of like humming? We have like a sort of like an operational system that works, that like, if a manager comes in, they know what to expect, how to be supported, how to forecast the business, how to plan the business, how to understand how their team's performing. So that's sort of been my method as of now.
Thanks very much. It sounds a bit like, I suppose heard it as just like with sales ops, as you see a problem in the data like that, you saw a problem in your life, sounds the wrong way of putting it, but your work and what you're able to do. You're like, go and solve this, so we find this individual to fit. And very, very nice use of overlapping skill sets, and engineering your job in the same way that you're doing to sort of serve the business.
Well, that's actually, I really appreciate that you said that, because although this year it's getting like those, that alignment and that operating method, I think the next view then is like, well, then how do we get everyone thinking about the future, not just thinking about the now? You know what I mean? So it's going to be, I think, evolving over time.
Thanks. And the other thing that it struck me is, obviously sales ops is very, be very in the weeds kind of role, because, and that often what draws people to it, like solving problems, understanding things, making things more efficient, better, etc. And as you know, you're building a team out to 20, and inevitably you're less and less in the weeds, because you've got to say, you go do that for me. And just wondered a bit about how you're finding that transition, any recommendations, if you think there's anything, reasons to do it or not to do it for different personality types, just anything you can speak on there.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I think when I first started growing up the team, one area where I really struggled was getting comfortable with delegating. And it's something I still really struggle with, right? You feel this guilt that you're putting all this work on other people that, you feel like is constantly changing. I was just in this leadership training where they were talking about like how critical it is to feel comfortable giving your team work that you don't know how to do yourself, right? And it's so funny when you're in a company that moves as fast, you do it all the time. So like, how do you continue to delegate even if it's a lot to ask of a team. And so I think one area where I've seen success, one, just in general, as I started growing the team and delegating, I was able to start thinking about bigger picture stuff, right? Our plan, for one, I think it just requires a lot of attention and a lot of time. But, one thing I was doing was I was independently forecasting for, our sales leaders. I was doing it twice a week, and it ate up a lot of time. And what I found was I was working like crazy, and then it'd come time to do the forecast, and I would be like, oh shoot, I have to go do that. So I would quickly put together some numbers and take a look at the data. And then I'd be like, wait, something changed. And now this is going to take up half my day, because now I need to look into what changed. I have to dig into the data. I have to understand trends. And sometimes it would take me an entire day, right? And losing a day is really, really hard. So this year, actually, I love telling the story of our co-op who, when I first started, she became a full-time person, and she's phenomenal. She's killing it now. So I was like, this would be great for her to learn about. And now she can do it at a more regular cadence, right? Because she has a slightly different bandwidth than me. So I brought her in to do it, full-time, and like, just even having her perspective, right? Like, I've been able to teach her a lot, but having someone doing it on a daily basis, she catches things that I wouldn't have the bandwidth to catch. She approaches things differently, right? She's very technical. She's awesome. So it's proved, although challenging, to let go. And I think the first forecast we did, we were both really hard on ourselves because we missed. So it can be rocky. And one thing I also tell my team as our team grows and they have to now start delegating is sort of like, you have to be comfortable knowing that like beginning period, a lot of mistakes are going to happen. They're going to drop the ball. They're going to mess up. You're going to drop the ball. You're going to mess up. And like, but then like as time goes by and you see how it grows, it ends up getting solved and taken care of way better than it would have been if you had just done it on your own.
That's really helpful. And I see if I can squeeze one more question in, because the other thing that really interested me was you talking about your SMS product and how you would approach selling a new product. And I think you kind of suggested that, you haven't got the data to lean on, so you just have to make some working assumptions and then test it. But I was keen to almost dive in there and just, what's your plan to sort of reevaluate? How are you thinking about how you're going to go about that and what you're hoping to see, etc.?
Yeah, we brought on a really great director of SMS more recently, and having him here, I think, he's done it. I don't want to take credit. He's done a ton of work on the initial plan piece, and we've been able to partner with him and sort of just now today just understand like what underlying data do we need. So come 3 months from now, we can comfortably say like, okay, this is how much we think we can do. This is what we should expect. So really building basic funnel reporting at this point, right? How many leads do we generate? And I say basic, but it's far from basic, right? Running a business where all of your, hundreds of thousands of leads that come in, we're all initially representative of a single product. Now you're introducing this new lead type, right? This new lead that's coming in that can represent that new product or both products or just the old product. So thinking about answering those questions, which our system team has done a phenomenal job at figuring out. So, really understanding like what is our lead volume? How many of those are we able to schedule meetings with? What's the process that we need to teach our different teams to help them actually be able to drive that data properly or log that data properly. And then on from that, like how many opportunities we create, how much of it we win, answering questions like, is the seasonality the same as the rest of our business? Do we have a longer sales cycle, a shorter sales cycle? Do these customers ultimately, churn or even grow the same way our existing customer base does? So a lot of questions that we need to answer that I think can really be solved with a solid funnel. And more recently, I think we've gotten there.
Great, that's really helpful. I think we often want immediate solutions, but to say, but we can't do it now. But what do we need so we can do it in 3 months is a really helpful approach.
That's the hardest part, right? You work with, especially reporting to, Tom asked the question if we were a report to, and you report into sales. But in my prior company, I reported into finance. And being a sales ops team in a finance org, you almost become like a police, right? You're almost like, we can do this for you. We can't do this for you. Tough luck, right? That was just the reality in my last company. And it creates some tension between sales and sales ops because of that. Working in sales, there's the benefit that like, you're able to build up so much more trust, right? Like I have a great relationship with the person who runs the team, with our directors. And although there's still some, the reality is our VP of sales drives our priorities, right? So I think trying to both work with the team and then also teach them why it might take longer or why, as much as a great idea to change a process, should feel like it can happen immediately. There's a reality that like, if we want to do it right, we need time. We need to build requirements. We need to understand. And I get why that can be frustrating, right? We have very lofty goals and we're growing like crazy. So it's a thin line to walk.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very illuminating.
All right, there we go. Zahra, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for what I actually liked, which we hadn't really done before, is the detailed breakdown of the department, like the structure, who reports to who are the different job roles. And then there was a couple of really nice learnings in there. Particularly, I really do like it when I see sales ops people or like being almost moved around businesses because they formed the relationships with the people that they work with. And I think that's really, really great to see. And so with that, Zahra, I want to thank you for coming on and being so honest on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. This is fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.